And becoming a special meeting, we don't actually have to approve an agenda, but this is the agenda, so let me know if you have any problems with it. Judy, you just asked the big question, and what was that old saying that everybody's going to answer that question, and I'm going to answer it because I want to say it too, which is, we are council fundamentally an organizational planners, right? So that's what we do. We do a regional plan, we do family plans, we do a development guide, and as council members, we're kind of own those plans. And yet this one Minnesota is about the Walz administration, the priorities of the Walz administration. So this strategic plan is our plan, is for what we are as an entity and where our priorities are and how we affect everything else that we do. And I know Lisa, student is going to really describe the differences between a regional plan, which we're putting together, our regional guide, our 10-year process, and what we're doing here today. I just would really quick, because we have 2.5 hours, 2 hours and 20 minutes. That's not enough time to put together a master strategic plan, call it what you want. But it is building on the work that's been done by the previous council, many of you were here. The administration, which is the One Minnesota Walz plan. And so fortunately, I think that I've noticed the values, what we really care about for the region are very much in sync with the Walz One Minnesota. I think you've probably seen that by looking at it. So I don't think of this as building by scratch, but getting the wisdom in the room to both affirm we're doing the right thing, and two, to kind of put a little flesh around it. And then make sure that it's back in front of us on a regular basis, not just in August, but I mean throughout the next 4 years. I think COVID got in the way a little bit. We started kind of getting into a whole lot of other things. But now's an opportunity to kind of look at the metrics, see the progress we're making, and to kind of do a self-evaluation and evaluation of our staff and all of us together. We're making progress, you know, and 4 years goes by pretty fast. These are long-term issues, but I think we're going to make progress on it. And I especially feel good about this group and where we are right now. So thank you all for being part of it. And I will, now that I've said it all, Lisa's going to really describe what's going on. Good, Lisa.
Thank you. Thank you, Charlie. I'm Lisa Barajas, Executive Director of the Community Development Division. She, her pronouns. It's my pleasure to be in front of you today. I'm going to zoom through a lot on the regional plan, which will be familiar to a lot of our council members, but will feel like a lot for some of our newer council members. But my whole purpose is to set some of the stage, and I know you will have seen some of this before. You'll continue to see some of these baseline things around the regional plan as we continue to do our regional planning work over the coming years, that you'll memorize what the slides look like. You're like, yeah, we got it, Lisa. But this is the beginning of that. So some of this will look familiar. But the purpose is to provide that grounding on what do we do in the regional plan, and then how does that distinctive, but related to what we do in this strategic plan. Click. There we go. So I'll do a quick regional planning overview, what sets the stage for our work, our approach to the 2050 process. You'll see a lot of slides in here already that I won't dwell on, that are what the conversations we've already had over the last 3 or 4 years that have been setting the stage around the data and analysis and reporting that we've been providing, and then transition into and turn it over to George for strategic planning. So to get us started, Minnesota statutes directs us to do this work. It's one of the primary reasons that the agency, the council was formed, was to coordinate the regional planning for the Twin Cities metropolitan area. But it was in 1976, several years after the council's formation in '67, that the legislature was like, okay, we've been having you do planning, but it doesn't have a relationship to local comprehensive plans. And we need to make that relationship distinctive and also really get into what we're trying to accomplish with regional planning. So the council had found, the legislature, not us, the legislature had found that communities in the 7-county metro area are truly interdependent. That the work that they do, the actions that they take, the things that they build or allow to be built within their communities really impact all of the region's infrastructure, not just the infrastructure within that community's jurisdiction or within their borders. And that continued growth in the region will continue to drive a need for more public services, and that even in the 70s, that there was an increased risk of air and water pollution and water supply shortages. Those issues continue to live with us today in different formations and permutations. But all of these independent issues, they were finding, were driving this need to actually have regional planning, that we need to be focusing on this for the 7-county metro. And the whole goal is to ensure the coordinated, orderly, and economical development of the 7-county metro area. And those 3 elements are really important. They're really core to the work that all of us do across our different divisions. As we're working with local governments, as we're providing and planning for capital investments, is really ensuring that the land uses that are being planned for support the infrastructure investments that we're making as a region, and vice versa, that the region's infrastructure investments are supporting the land uses that local governments and communities are planning for as well, and that it's done together. And then, of course, the one that I know those of you who come from public service or as elected officials prior, that public health, safety, and welfare are always a core function of what we do. And that was to explicitly put in the council's Land Planning Act as well. So the statute requires that the council develop a regional development guide, and it's meant to encompass the entire 7-county metro area, and that it has to consist of these things: goals, standards, programs, maps, etc. Again, prescribing the orderly and economical development of the metro area. So this is really an outward-facing document about how do we manage what's happening in the 7 counties, how do we ensure that growth is actually happening in a way that we can accommodate, that isn't having negative impacts across the region, and that is taking advantage of the infrastructure investments that we've used or have made. Further, you can see that the statute is also pretty permissive. It says that the guide has to acknowledge a number of different things: physical, social, and economic needs. It should also consider the future developments that will have an impact on the entire region. And it's not limited to including things such as land use, parks and open space, necessity for and location of airports, highway, transit, public hospitals, libraries, schools, and other public buildings. So it's very broad in what our planning should be including or is allowed to consider. In some areas, we have specific areas of responsibility, like planning for regional parks. That's one of our regional systems. Planning for a regional wastewater service, also a system. Transit, transportation, aviation, part of our regional transportation system. But it doesn't mean we can't consider some of the other development, and we shouldn't consider some of the other developments that will have an impact across the region. So our current document, Thrive MSP 2040, is what is considered the Regional Development Guide, along with a system policy and policy plans that are like chapters of that guide. In this section, as you've heard our staff present, in the 2050 process, as you've heard our staff talk about previously, that we're really trying to build this as a truly comprehensive development guide in this 2050 process, rather than a series of separate plans that we hope hold together. But in this cycle, what we currently have adopted are Thrive, and then our system plans, which I mentioned: the transportation policy plan, the water resources policy plan, and the regional parks policy plan. Within each of those policy plans, they are also directed by statute for what they need to include, specific goals, policies, and strategies, and capital improvement plans for system improvements, extensions, limitations on that work, and policies for ensuring the efficiency of those systems. They also have to explain the relationship and ensure that they conform to the Regional Development Guide. And in transportation in particular, also federal requirements that they must also meet as for meeting the requirements of the Metropolitan Planning Organization under federal rules. In the 2040 cycle, the council also prepared and adopted a housing policy plan, which was the first time it had done so since the 1980s. This isn't a plan that is directed by statute specifically. It's not a system the way that the infrastructure ones are that are up above. But rather the council does play a significant role in housing in the region. And there were a couple of reasons that the council undertook a housing policy plan. One was that as a housing choice voucher provider and a public housing authority, having a relation to the policy development and our role in that and identifying what that means was really important. We're also provide a significant number of grants through our local communities grant programs that are meant to support affordable housing development. So having housing related policies about what we're trying to accomplish can help align our grant programs as well. And finally, local units of government are required to, in their local comprehensive plans, to address their existing and projected affordable housing need and their share of the region's affordable housing need and what their plans are to facilitate the development of that within their communities. Well, identifying what that regional need is a regional role, and helping to allocate what that looks like for each community in the region is the role that the council takes on. In the past, the council had sort of done through that in between policy plans through kind of reports and papers, but not in an official policy about what our expectations were around what the region's need for affordable housing was and how that would relate to local comprehensive plans. So that housing policy plan plays those three roles, directing our housing authority, our grants programs, and the relationship to local government plans. And our staff will be in front of you to talk more about that work in the 2050 process too, but I just wanted to give you that high-level overview. All of these regional plans are really a framework for local government planning. We set the broad context what our forecasted growth is over the next 30 years, so a long time horizon, which is different than the strategic plan. While we would like our strategic plan to have lasting impacts, the time horizon for action is in these next couple of years. Whereas for the 2040 or the 2050 plan, we're looking out over a 20 to 30 year time horizon. And while we will take action in the interim, the effects and impacts may not be seen for years to come. As the council adopts the plans, we are then required to issue what are called system statements to every single local unit of government in the metro area. And we basically have to take everything in those big set of documents and turn it into what does this mean for your community? And do that for all 188 jurisdictions within the metro area. The council's issuance of system statements kicks off the local planning process, and local units of government are required to submit their plans back to the council in response to that system statement by the year ending in 8 of every decade. So we must do this, issue our system statements in the year ending in 5. So we have this timeline that we're kind of required, we are required by law, not kind of to follow. But within that, we identify the council's roles in achieving the regional vision and in relationship to each of these areas and in land use. The community's roles and our expectations for them, our expectations for supporting forecasted growth, like minimum densities and decades for doing that, and expectations for planning and supporting regional infrastructure and connections with that local and regional infrastructure. Local comprehensive plans, as many of you are familiar with, are really important. They are the community's vision and they represent what the community wants to accomplish within their community and in consultation with all of their residents, business owners, etc. And it guides that growth locally, which parcels, at which densities, and eventually turns into what the zoning is for that particular area. They also identify key local issues and how a community intends to respond to them. So this really is, the local comp plan is that local vision and principles. It's a reasoning for and a rationale for public facilities plans and the budgets that should be coming out of them, and really is meant to be a tool to provide guidance on local decision making. And we rely on them when the council has to review and authorize all local comprehensive plans in the metro area. The council's authorization of those plans is like our signing a contract with that local unit of government. We said, yes, we agree to what you say you're doing in their plan, in your plan, and therefore we are going to bring the services that you need that we committed to, our wastewater capacity service on the timelines that you need to in order to help you meet your local units or your community's vision for those plans. So when a community strays from that, we said that's not in the contract. You might have to amend your plan or, which sometimes happens, or usually happens, but sometimes we find like, hey, you did something that wasn't in your plan. You need to come back and show us what you're planning to do, because that's not what you're planning. We weren't planning to serve anything over there. So we really want to be sure that we are truly coordinated in this. While we're looking at coordination across local units of government, it also is coordination between the regional infrastructure investments and the local infrastructure and development as well. So I talked a little bit about the cycle. You'll see the cycle and you'll have it memorized, maybe get a tattoo of it because you love it so much. But this is the thing that drives our work at the council on a 10-year basis. And right now we are in this process right now in the beginning of the regional development guide with our system and policy plans as part of that. You're going to continue to hear more from our staff, especially over this year and next year when we get into adoption and have some really great questions about where should we put growth and where should we not put growth underway. So I'm going to zip through this. We've seen this a little bit. I talked a little bit about this timeline, but at a super high level, we're moving towards, in 2023 now, where we've done the vision development and identification of challenges and opportunities. We started in 2022 and moving into 2023. But 2023 is really the heart of our policy development work with you all, in engagement with our partners and residents of the region and stakeholders in the region about what those issues should be and how we should be addressing them together. And then we'll be moving into some of that draft, official stuff on digital paper in 2024 and working through those, details of what the letters are on the page and to get toward a planned adoption for you all by the end of 2024. And then we kick off the local plan process and issue system statements in 2025. I mentioned this earlier, and you'll see this a lot too. We're really trying to build this in a cycle where rather than we're building our plans independently, that we're working together under a large shared vision and values, and each of our policy areas are just a chapter in that overall plan. It's a different approach for the council. The council has kind of emerged from being independent agencies for a long time with separate agency policy plans, Waste Control Commission, and then, the different boards that used to exist, and then pulling together into being a single agency and truly living that out in our planning work. So you've had the values and vision discussion. We're moving into some of those cross-cutting goals discussions in the coming weeks and months here, and those things will really drive some of the things that we all need to be working together to be achieving and addressing. And then you certainly will be hearing more about each of these chapters in your committees and also at committee of the whole as we continue to move forward. And of course, all of the myriad advisory groups and external groups that we have that support this work. I'm gonna skip ahead about this because I know our staff will talk more about scenario planning, just getting down into the weeds a little bit on that. But the last couple of years, I just wanted to share with you, and I know for new members this can be a lot, but for existing members, more of a reminder of the types of reports that we've been bringing to you that really build the foundation of our understanding of where we are today in the region, what has been happening in the region, what the trends are, and where we want to be maybe looking forward or things we need to be thinking about as we're planning for the future. These are just a sampling. It's not everything. There are so many more discussions that have been happening in, for example, Transportation and Environment Committee. We just pulled from community development and council meetings to share this, but continue to work across all of these different areas, and you'll see more of this turning into, not in addition to national, trends and reports of what has happened and where we are today, but turning more into what we're learning from things like lessons from our 2021 population estimates or trends that we're seeing in a water supply, things like rents and where they are today, and continuing to move forward. And we have a lot of annual reporting. I'm happy to share links with folks where you can find all of those, but tons of reporting that we've done and will continue to do, including what we've learned from local comprehensive plans in the 2040 cycle and what those trends are, what their values are that they've identified as being important to each local government, how they're different across different areas and geographies, and what they're highlighting as important or issues that need to be addressed. We also have, since the adoption of Thrive and since your time here, we've obviously had other plans that the council has done, the most recent being the strategic, or not recent, but the strategic plan for this last administration. The council adopted a regional economic framework, which served as our comprehensive economic development strategy for the federal requirements to compete for federal economic development dollars. That opens up opportunities for businesses and other stakeholders in the region to do this, and was something that we developed in partnership with Center for Economic Inclusion and Greater MSP, but is a really important part of kind of the overall mix of what's happening in this region that we'd like to also incorporate into our 2050 process, both to maintain competitiveness for federal dollars, but also because there's a lot to learn there that relates to the vision and the goals that you've already identified for the 2050 plan. Council also adopted the Zero Emissions Bus Transition Plan, as well as the Climate Action Work Plan just this last December. So you have a lot of newer and updated activity that you have accomplished over the last several years that really are important both to the strategic plan itself, where we've been, what have we accomplished, what are some of the new directions that are set in some of these plans, but are also important to the directions that we set for a longer term vision in the 2050 process. I'm going to skip through here really quick because I know we're short on time. So I've touched on this several times, but really just want to end here that the strategic plan is really meant to be that organizational direction for what we do and what as staff especially you want us to focus on in addition to our core elements that we have to do, but the core priorities that we should be focusing on during your tenure here at the council. What is important to you? What are the strategies that we should be focusing on here? Now, we do have strategies in our 2050 plan, but they're much higher level usually, around collaboration and developing tools and some, much at a longer range level that gives us room to adapt and adjust over time. In your strategic plan, we'd expect you to be as specific as you can be on actions, where you can be specific on the types of things we like to do, the programs you'd like us to investigate. Where at the 2050 level, we'll say, investigate programs that can help us do X. You might say, I think I'd like you to focus on the home ownership program and the Section 8 voucher program, right? And much more specific than what we would put in a 2050 plan. So this is really, as George had mentioned before, an intersection of our regional responsibilities and the roles we play at the council, as well as what the state priorities are and how we align those together and make impact in the short term as we're building our plan for the long term. Opportunity for you as council members to identify those priority areas that are important to you in your time here and really relate those to what we often see is really just a further articulation of what our regional plans say today, but what we would like to focus on in these coming years. And I think that is everything I can give to you. I just gave you a run through and I think I'm right on time, so I'm happy to take questions, but I know we're on a clock. Thank you.
We have like 4 minutes for you to take. I'm impressed. Any questions? All right. Thanks, Lisa. I really appreciate it. Okay. There is going to be a quiz of 2 minutes, so I'm hoping.
Great.
Yes. All right. Okay. A lot of information, right, for you guys. My name is George Gonzalez. I'm the Deputy Regional Administrator. Most of you know by now. I just feel like I need to say that. So we have been separated into 4 different areas of what the current goals for the current strategic plan that expired in December 2022 has. The packet in front of you contains several things. So on the very top is the agenda that you have, so that way you know that we can stay focused. The second piece of it, you're going to have the current strategic plan. There's like 4, depending on which area you have, there's anywhere between 4 to 6 pages. I'm giving you your committee assignments. You have the current strategic plan that we have today. The other document is the One Minnesota Plan. It is black and white on purpose. If you look at page 3, it's in color. That is what we're working with. And page 3 contains the One Minnesota strategies or the priorities from the governor's office. So there are 6 priorities that they have, right? And we'll talk about that in a couple of minutes here. The next set of documents or the next set of pages is the plan, as we have today, the strategic plan, with feedback from staff as well as legal. They reviewed it, they gave some, thank you, Dave, for your thorough review, and he did this really, really well. And that is a document really, and I apologize for the small print, that is a document that we really need you to kind of look at and discuss. And if you have your computer, you can bring it up and load it up, it's great. And if you need bigger fronts, I'll be happy to make some copies for you. But essentially, there are some to-dos for you. So the goal is to, like I said before, evaluate, update priorities, and develop goals that we're gonna have for the next several years. Again, we're gonna continue review this strategic plan, and then we're gonna have another meeting, kind of see, test the water. Are you happy? Are you not? Can we change it? Yes or no? And then in January we'll have another one where it's gonna be a little bit more expanded. We'll have more time to discuss and update the plan and resubmit our updated plan. Okay? So what is your role today? Your role is update. I keep saying that because I just want to make sure. Update, develop goals, and the outcomes that you want for that goal. And then the timing of the reporting that you want us to report back to you. Right? What does it mean when you have a goal, and how do you want to see that data? I also, and to do is for you, after the 50-minute discussion, is for you to assign a council member to do a report out on what your goal is for your particular area.
Take it easy.
Do I sound like a teacher?
Take it easy.
Good job, George.
Thank you, Leon. Okay, any question on your role today? Okay, the staff role. If you look around, there's a lot of us kind of hanging out. We're not going to be hanging out for much longer. We're going to actually be joining you at your tables. And our role is to really understand the goal that you guys think, the how we're going to measure this, right? That's us. And to assist you with recording information that you're kind of discussing during your 50-minute breakout. Okay. And then once all of that's recorded and kind of captured, just to set some expectations, all of that's going to be gathered by the staff. I'm going to update the strategic plan, and I will send it back to you guys next Tuesday by 5 p.m. You will have it. You will have 10 days to review it and provide me feedback. And then I will update with your feedback and send it back to you guys. At that point, you will have 72 hours to turn around. It's because we have to submit this to the governors, to MMB, by April the 20th. And I'd like to do that the day before, not on the 20th. Any questions? I'm very much into the timing. Yes, ma'am.
Don't call me ma'am. The old George, sorry. I'm a little surprised on page 3, and I've read it and reread it several times, and I don't see the word safety there at all.
Yeah.
And I know that it's a big issue for us, and I can't believe that it's not a big issue for the whole One Minnesota effort. And so if we could provide feedback, I think they need to add a priority. On Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's one of the basics, just like housing and you know, shelter. So,
I will add that note. And as part of, I don't know who has transit, you guys, that's something that I think,
Transit and transit,
housing.
it's not just.
and parks and open space.
So I think communities,
Yeah,
healthy Minnesota, life safety.
Yeah.
and the fact that we've adopted a safety plan too, and all the plans, and I know it's not all the plans, but that was another plan, so
I will
we
provide.
should probably be leading with that, I would think, right now.
And it should be an issue statewide.
Yes.
I mean, I hear relatives in Greater Minnesota, former teaching colleagues in Greater Minnesota talk about it. So it's not just us.
I'm not disagreeing.
But have somebody barricaded in the house in Cannon Falls right now.
Really?
Shot somebody and,
Ooh,
yeah.
Okay,
so we, each table will have a staff person recording when they talk.
Yes, sir. sorry, I
I
don't
know
mean to
you
offend, I'm
said
just
it.
used to sir and ma'am, and I have to apologize.
That's okay.
Girl.
And one more last clarification.
Yes, ma'am.
And the goal that we have, yes, I'm with her. The goal that we have is the goal that the former council, because we're not saying old council either, the former council, that was the one that we had done previously, but so that everybody at least can level set to see where we had been. Is that what you're saying here?
That is correct.
Okay.
The first set of documents, it is the goal that was approved by the prior council, that was put in place in 2020. All right. We're gonna time you, and I apologize for that, but we're gonna time you. We have some goals that we need to complete. So, staff, and I failed to put this, okay, so transit will be here. Transportation, sorry. Transportation.
Can't forget your fight.
I know. Housing will be here.
Equity.
Hey.
You're gonna be recording those.
I
Appreciate the nomination, I need to leave early.
Us three will be there.
I'm happy to.
Yay.
And environmental services. Sustainability.
Oh, and maybe I'll have you do it.
I just know we know.
Got over my goal, and then I'll just.
All right. Yeah, 50 minutes.
Sustainability.
I heard that.
I feel like, okay, so just one more. So I think the ones that, measurements that don't have.
All right,
I do have all these that at work today too.
No way. Your brain is supposed to be full.
all right, you got 2 minutes, finish up your thoughts, and then we have to do a report out.
I don't know what you said.
By table,
Yeah, sending it to you.
all right? Be like a teacher. All right, so we're gonna do a report out by table. The food is here, so if you're not reporting out, feel free to go and grab some food and then come back. But we'll start with that table with transportation first. So who's gonna do the report out? Is that Councilmember Barber? Who's doing report out?
Our notes are in the other room.
Our notes are in the process of printing.
Oh, your notes are in the process of printing. Got it.
To someone else and they come back to us.
I didn't hear you.
All right. Can you guys do the report out? Who's gonna do a report out? All right, so.
Can I pick a staffer?
Yes, Councilmember, you.
John, I picked John.
No, he doesn't do that.
I think that's one of you.
I don't know where to start. If I could read your stuff, I would.
It's on the pusher.
It's on the list. I wrote everything down.
Okay, so who's gonna present it?
I guess I could.
Okay, I'll get you lunch.
We'll support
I knew
you.
about you.
Well, right here behind you.
Are we supposed to start?
I was
And so they're saying.
They started over there.
Before my term is up.
That's all right.
No problem.
All right, who's presenting?
We are getting over it right now.
Yeah, we're ready.
All right. Okay, so the first report out will be
Sustainability.
sustainability. We're gonna start with the goal.
Okay.
What's the goal?
So our new goal, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so our new goal is to build a resilient region and inclusive green economy by mitigating and adapting to the impacts of climate change, centering equity and communities most impacted by climate crisis. That's our new goals.
Okay. How does success look like for that? And how are we gonna measure that?
We ran out of time before we get it.
Some of the goals are to be.
We were too busy rewriting the strategies.
Because that's one of the key things that we have to do. I have to report. right? So as part of the strategy, not only is it a goal, but what does success look like for us as an organization as far as our strategy?
Well, we do have some strategies under the
Yep.
regional planning objectives.
So, so the strategies, we shifted a lot of the strategies.
Okay.
And actually, what we wrote in our goal shows up, both in partnership. So I'll do the regional. So in the regional, we talked about like partnering with local government to actually do climate action plan, and then partnering with local government to provide technical assistance, and then creating inclusive green economy that is in partnership with local government and businesses. And then also looking at partnering with local government on figuring out like how to center environmental justice principles and community in regional planning and growth. So the strategies are very aligned with the goal.
Okay.
And then in terms of investment, we talked about 100% renewable, not clean, but 100% renewable clean energy for the council operations. Plan for council-owned affordable housing buildings to go to reduce energy burden and also create a decarbonization plan by 2050. And then also achieve 100% zero emissions fleet for transit and electrification.
Okay.
So those are measurable, very concrete goals.
Yep.
And strategies.
All right, so I'm hoping that you're gonna give me all of your
All of
documents,
this,
including the goal,
yes.
right? So I can capture that. Thank you very much. Okay, now we can.
And I think we kind of ran out of time, but one of the keys is that because the climate action plan just came out, that the sustainability, we're gonna have to do some linking to the climate action plan and kind of re-modify some of these based on that, and I didn't prepare and read that
Sure.
enough.
No, of course,
So they're linked, and we want to make sure that they show up here.
of course. And as a reminder, this is not a one and done. This is a continual revolving, kind of reviewing. Here's what we're doing, here's how we're doing towards a goal, and then tweak it along the way. Yes, sir.
Yeah, just real quickly, and that was one of the things we were looking at is what is the positive of all this? So all we're gonna do is mitigate problems. I don't think we're gonna achieve a vision. And so what we talked about was how do we look at not only the green economy, but who's benefiting by the green economy, whether it's diversity, whether it's equity, I mean, and so we looked at that. The other thing we looked at is what's been missing is also the security of our water and our air systems. We actually are one of the leaders in that, and so every day somebody has a leak or a train crash, or what are we doing to establish the risk and be ready and mitigate the problems that do exist, and how do we incorporate that with all of our local and state entities?
Right, because those are stories, right? And those are measurable things that we can provide information on, and that's really good.
And I think John bringing up the future and the leadership, and we'll go back and incorporate that more into these, but that's really pushing us forward, is to continue and expand our leadership into these areas.
Yeah, and remember, once I update with all the feedback that I get from you guys, once I send it, you'll have 10 days, not business days, 10 calendar days to go, you're laughing,
Maybe we should have a Zoom call.
to get back to me, right, with the updates. So, and you can do it online, because you'll have a link to a live document. Okay, so easy peasy.
We got another rest for a little bit here.
All right. Transportation, are you back?
Yeah, we're back.
All right.
Okay, so transportation, combined what success looks like in our goal. So our goal is to strengthen our regional transportation system, operating safe, reliable, and accessible transportation options. Success will look like everyone supports our regional economic competitiveness in meeting this goal. One of the things that we modified in our regional planning objective was to make sure that we're focusing in on not only researching and evaluating, but generating travel models across modes that focus on regional travel demand as well as the trends and including how long-term impacts of like things like the COVID are affecting our travel behavior and the demands that are needed by our customer. In terms of regional planning objective strategy, we wanted to add that adopting the 2040 transportation policy plan modification to address planning requirements for inclusion of transit-way projects in the region's long-range transportation plan. That helps to emphasize more our transit advancement policy and goals. And then for investment objective strategies to align, track federal, state, and local transportation funding for regional investment, we wanted to emphasize a strategy that would fund and operate and maintain secure our current system and to strengthen the network. So that's one addition that we had to the existing strategy. Secondly, to secure funding to maintain transit assets in a state of good repair. Applying transit advancement procedures to assess the benefits and mitigate risks in advancing projects. Working with our partners was a key theme that we wanted to emphasize, including working with Transportation Advisory Board tab, and with their input determining investments for future federal funding, including carbon reduction. We wanted to emphasize carbon reduction as well. And then in terms of investment objectives, strategies, we saw several strategies that were related, so we grouped those together and maybe changed around some of the order. Working with partners to help ensure a safe, welcoming, and accessible environment, so that gets into the accessibility. Not just focusing in on the strategy of working with the legislature to change the way we do our citations, but to expand the official presence on the transit system, including legislative authorization to shift fare enforcement to a system of administrative citations issued by non-sworn staff. So it's a little bit of a rewording there. Increasing transit service coverage while maintaining service reliability. Again, the maintenance piece included in there. And then we moved some strategies from the investment objective to the funding objective because they seem to fit more there. Talked a little bit about Metro mobility services to replace the current agency contract services. And then we didn't really have a whole lot of changes. We ran out a little bit of a time in terms of the measurable goal outcomes, but we wanted to work on the bullet point regarding the different modes of transportation, ADRTs, and make it seem more comprehensive instead of just focused on our what we want to achieve by what year.
Okay. And I'm hoping that you wrote all of that down, that's a document I can have, so I.
It's in your inbox, George. It's already.
All right. I don't want you calling me to say, nah, you messed up my thoughts. No. That's what you'll have, again, 10 calendar
We
days.
can get it to you after today.
Thank you very much. Again, a reminder, if you've already presented and you want to eat some food, please help yourself, it's in there. All right, housing next.
Yep, so I'll present, and this was a great group with a real range of experience and position, and people weren't shy about expressing them, and we had a really good and robust conversation. So our approach was to start with the existing document and kind of go section by section and thumbs up, thumbs down, what do we need to change? So we spent some time with just the goal language. Overall, we thought was pretty good. But we all kind of, it was to become a region with a broader housing spectrum where all people can thrive. we kind of stumbled on that word broader, so we offered some more specific language about that offers choice in housing, and then we moved on to our, I guess is that an iteration, the regional, for long-term housing priorities, that we actually thought was pretty good, and we kind of left that as it was, I believe, or maybe just tweaked a couple of words. So we tried not to get into too much wordsmithy. And Lisa assures me she has wonderful notes that she'll forward to you. Not quite as quickly as Charles did, but in a quick one.
Go fast.
Living strategies, especially, so our framework, which is pretty, it's only about a page and 2/3 maybe. And one of them is regional planning objectives, and then investment operations objectives. And then we kind of delved in. And then our first regional planning objective, as it read, was assume a leadership role, developing a toolkit, and then kind of on and on. And we felt that assuming a leadership role is kind of passive, right? Everyone will lead. We'll lead in this. And so kind of punching up that language. It's really focused on a couple of things as a regional planning objective. One was a toolkit, which we felt kind of was a low bar for a regional planning objective. It's more like a strategy. And then a lot of it focused around ending unsheltered homelessness, right? Is that here? Yeah. Because at the time, 4 years ago, this was like the tip of my mind for sure, and I think a lot of folks' mind. We had encampments all over. And so kind of tempering that a little more, introducing the words affordable, quality, safe, and safe around our description of housing. And so strategies we really delved into and sort of got rid of some that didn't feel like they were as relevant anymore, and tried to focus some more really leveraging our role as convener, you know, this technical assistance we can bring, technical assistance to specific communities, right? Communities maybe more in rural parts of the metro area. Again, kind of pumped up the language so it was not quite, so passive, introduced the word success in place when we talk about family housing, just introducing it overall, sort of introducing some more current kinds of words, like deeply affordable housing, for example. That doesn't appear here anywhere here. It's a common descriptor now. So, and then we still emphasizing expansion of housing opportunities for people with disabilities, and then to Sue's point to all of us really, but the sort of the generational thing that's happening with housing, where people are aging out of housing may become available. What role do we have in supporting kind of this generational shift? Under investment and operations objectives, the main objective we left pretty much in place, but lifting up kind of the lower income or deeply affordable housing. We just scratched several of the objectives that didn't make any sense to us anymore. And otherwise, a lot of the pieces stayed in place. And then when we got to the measurable goals and outcomes, only one of our 5 existing measurable goals had a measurement. And so we didn't come up with measurements, but the recommendation is if we're gonna increase home ownership, oh, that's the one that does have one. If increase home ownership rates by race and ethnicity by X. You know, they should all have the by X. I can't even believe we called these measurements.
Yeah.
4 years ago.
Neither can I, but that's okay.
So that's it.
That's good, that's why we're here.
Can I ask one question?
No.
Briefly?
No.
So did you guys look at all about the corporate purchasing of single-family homes in communities at all as it relates to housing stock? It's just hitting the news and people are really becoming aware and moratoriums are coming on for some rentals. I just think
Corporate landlords, you mean?
yeah, you know, coming in and buying up houses cash and
In other cities like Microsoft in Seattle.
Right.
Yeah, so I just don't know if we don't control that, but it's something that I think we can talk about in CDC.
Right, I think we should, and the one of the objectives we did eliminate was this one that I think I really advocated for last round, which was around the private sector's role in
employer provided.
right, and so it just
We don't
that's
have to
complicated, we don't have authority there, you know, I think we all agreed that private sector employers expect the public sector to subsidize their workforce's housing, but it was hard to grab full on planning of time.
The corporate-owned housing will be part of our investigation, part of the housing policy plan, and where we are today and what issues we're facing.
Cool. Is there any legislation pending on that?
There is, in lots of debates. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you very much indeed. Last but certainly not least,
Okay, I'll just tee it up, but then we're giving it to Sai, because she was our note taker, and she really, I think, we came up with all kinds of things. We realized that the goal wasn't as strong as it should be, so we've restated the goal, and it was just seemed very passive, and we wanted to be more certain and aggressive in what we're trying to do. We also, as we kind of looked at everything through the strategies, we thought too, a lot of these weren't strategies, some of them ended up in tactics. But what we found out with Sai and her team's great work is that they had taken all of this and kind of bucketed into 4 major categories, and that work is ongoing right now. And we also learned that there's going to be an equity audit at the council, which then kind of factored in to some of our strategies and outcomes that we were looking at. So some of them were reducing barriers for DBE and minority-owned and women-owned businesses, growing the pipeline, becoming the model for our partners, rather than creating partnerships and trying to force it on everybody else. Well, we'll become the model on how we do that. Try to streamline it for folks like that. So, anybody else got any couple of things you want to add that I'm not? And then Sai will actually say what we came up with.
So the restated goal right now is eliminate racial disparities through measurable impact for Black, Indigenous, people of color, and people who are historically underrepresented throughout the region. And so the categories that we start out with, like others, are the regional planning objectives, investment objectives, and council operations objectives. We're going to take some more time to reword the strategies, but our bigger buckets are around small business, so procurement and awards to small businesses, investments like our CD program, RFP banking that we have existing, people when it comes to, of course, hiring, retention, discipline, and promotion, and then also taking that larger, and then policy, because we've been working, there's a lot of work that's already happened since we started these over the last 2.5 years. And so we'll take some of the planning around the small business equity audit, which currently has an RFP out that closes on April 6th that will address some of these strategies. And we'll incorporate that in here, as well as the engagement and business development strategy and the RFP banking proposal. So there's already some action that's happening, and so we'll just reword these to speak to that.
And I would just add that, and I think this came out from the council that created this originally 4 years ago. We talk about equity as from procurement but we can't, equity should be across all of the work, right? That cross, like we've now heard, we've got our silos, but there's cross-section work or whatever it was called. So this is a big one, and we know that because we were talking about some housing things and transportation things, right?
So the exact same thing.
Thank you. And then, and just organizationally, we said we need to look internally at the council to make sure we're doing the things that we need to be doing here. We talked about wages, we talked about a lot of things, so that audit might surface some of that. We also talked about the resources that this council needs to provide for the people doing the work, whether it's engagement or research or whatever it is, because we know that sometimes that's a pinch point, and we want our people to be empowered to come in that budget in the fall, letting us know what they need to get this work done and not have that hinder them. So
and one of the things that we mentioned was the fact that the ranking, most organizations, when they're putting together something like this, so if you're gonna list 4 things, you need to know what's the most important. You need to rank them, and you need to have your members rank them separately, and then you aggregate those rankings so that you can say 100% our number 1 is our number 1, because reality of budgets is you may not get the number 4, or because of resources, but maybe you can get to it next year, or you can, eventually get to it, but so you need to know what your number 1 is so you can bring more of your resources to bear and at least have somewhat of a victory by getting that done.
Yep, 100%. Okay, well done. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, I know this was very focused, this was very narrow, right? So, and I can see the excitement and I can hear it, and that's super cool for me to be part of this with you all as a new council member. So I'm gonna put everything together, so what are the next steps? So I'm gonna gather all the information that we discussed today, that you've shared with us. And then I'm gonna put it all in a document, and I'm gonna forward back to you all for review, update, feedback. If I miss something, please say so I can update it before it gets submitted to MMB.
10 business days, right?
Sir?
10 business days, right?
No, turn calendar days. Why are you giving me a hard time? You'll get to learn, I am all about giving time, and dates and okay, so a lot of work was done. Again, as a reminder, we're gonna have another session. This is not a one and done. Another session later on in the year, and then a really broader session in 2024 where you will have more time. My question to you is, okay, does this work? Do you rather be in a separate rooms with other folks that you can kind of discuss the area in a quieter, sort of like your own area? I'm all ears. Yes, ma'am. Councilman Brento.
Sue. We had a conversation at the table about how well this went, and I made the observation that I normally loathe strategic planning sessions from my previous career. Like, I would try to think of reasons to be homesick instead of going to those. And I really, really enjoyed this. The one wish we had was to be a part of the conversations that each of the other groups had, but the sharing out helped. And I thought this was a great setup, and it worked for me. And I think I can say that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. What would you like to see different? Oh, sorry.
Okay, for me, like everybody, there's a theory of multiple intelligences. We all have different abilities and we work in different ways. I'm an introvert. I just function as an extrovert.
Me too, by the way.
And so I do my best work when I can go to the cave. In other words, you give me a document, and if you're asking me to work on it in a group right now, then that's really outside of my best work. My best work is when I can take that document home, go into study mode or in the cave and kind of like break it down, then bring it back and then offer it up to the group, and then they can say, okay, we like this, we don't like that. Maybe they don't like 75% of what I did, but at least I know I'm putting my best work out. So in this, I know this is necessary because of the deadline and reality of, that you have to deal with, but in the future, whenever we can, it'd be great if you can have this coming together, but then I want to take my document home, work on it, and bring it back, so I know I'm doing my best work.
Okay, good, great feedback. 4 weeks? 5 weeks? 3 weeks?
I don't even need that, I just need one night.
Okay.
I put on some soft, just smooth jazz, and I work between 12 and 5 o'clock in the morning.
I got you.
I call that the magic hour, and I can get it done.
Wait, 12 a.m. to 5 a.m.?
Yeah.
So I can call you at 4 when I wake up?
Yeah, you can. I'm up, on work, doing something.
No, but I appreciate the feedback. So what I am going to do is, prior to our next meeting, I will give you all the documents 4 weeks before time, and that way you have it, you can prepare it, your area, and that way we can have a probably more robust discussion at that point, because you have provided the feedback ahead of time. So I know that I didn't expect you to work with the
I know you're amazing, but I know you're not Superman.
Yeah, thank you for that. No, I am not by no means Superman.
So
Yes.
can we work and make these teams documents so we can work through teams, the collaborative document? Or how does the Met Council work on the collaborative?
You're the boss. You tell me how you want to work.
Okay, so I don't know I use Google Docs or Outlook or Teams or whatever Met Council prefers us to use?
We use Teams. We find that it's easier. I mean, with
So we're all on
most
Teams, right?
of the stuff. So everyone is on Teams.
That'd be an easy way to.
However you want. Yep. So what I'll do is for our next meeting, I will give you a physical copy. And then I will also send you an electronic copy, live copy that you can update as you go along.
To everybody's, just ours still, or?
For your area. So, yes, ma'am.
Is there any concerns with open meeting law stuff if we're working on Teams?
Yeah.
Because serial calls and.
Yes.
Yeah. Even a small.
Dave and I are also kind of observing and absorbing right now.
Wow.
You won't necessarily be able to conduct everything as you're speaking about it, but I don't feel comfortable just applying here. But we do have to be careful about the meeting law and how we're addressing things.
Yeah.
But they can update the document online.
Not together.
Not together, but,
We'll discuss that, George, and we'll let them know.
okay, thank you very much.
I just gave you a small group for that.
Yep.
Go, Wendy.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you for the feedback, much appreciated. I cannot tell you how excited I am to work with all of you in 2023 to really get this document in front of MMB and get their feedback. I'm sure we're gonna get some feedback. We're gonna get some, how are you gonna measure that? And that's okay, we'll connect again. I'm just really super excited. As I've emailed you, I told you I'm available. You can call me, you can email me. I try to answer my emails within 4 hours, typically get sooner than that. But I'm available if you want to ask any questions, just call or email me and I'll call you back. Yes. I'm sorry, it's just culturally,
I know.
so
Don't worry.
culturally and from the military, I can't help myself.
Don't worry about it, don't worry, I just have to be a smart ass. I would really love the opportunity to have the governor's staff or the governor talk to us about their expectations of us as a council.
Yeah.
I missed that during the first 4 years, and I expect it sometime early in these next 4. So I just wanted to.
I'd like to just meet the governor.
Well, and I would love to know.
Not that tall.
I would love.
I haven't met him either, so I don't.
I would love to know from him or his senior folks, what their expectations are of us. I know that staff many times have a lot of interaction with the governor's staff, but we've really had none, and I think it would be really beneficial. So, and if I'm over speaking for my colleagues, I apologize.
I think they've heard that message from several of us. So.
I think it's great. Thanks for saying that.
Is that my cue? Hey, I just echoed George's thoughts, appreciation. What a great collection of minds in this one room. And we used to have committee of the whole or committee meetings in the basement. And I said, isn't there a room that has a light? And here we are, we're in a 6 and it's still daylight. I'm actually meeting with the governor tomorrow, and I will just say, this is what I heard last night. And we've said that before, and I hope not just he, but his staff can come by and not just say what they expect, but kind of hear. So that'd be nice, and I appreciate that thought. I agree with you, absolutely.
Well, and to the extent that it can be two-way,
Yeah.
I think that would be really beneficial to know, because.
Part of the, we're having kind of a dynamic where governance of Met Council is under the, not under the knife, but under the microscope, right? And for a lot of reasons. But, we are a regional entity, and we are accountable to the governor. But we also would be supported by this administration toward advancing these goals, which are most administration goals, and they're ones I think we all believe in. But how do we accomplish that? And that's where the magic comes. So, and your input and staff and council members working together. It's pretty amazing what you can accomplish in just a couple hours. I'm just really impressed by that. And then we'll all go into our own caves. I work better there too, reflecting and then coming back. We'll have that iterative process. George, great job. Thank you. He's teasing. I was like, "Are you sure we're going to be able to measure some of this?" He's like, "Yeah, we're going to figure that out." And know that we're getting this information from you. You're going to be working through the weekend, so we won't call you at 4 in the morning. Really,
I'm usually putting my running shoes on.
All right, well, we appreciate the extra efforts you're putting in, and everybody, to get this done. This is, as they say, it continues to be a work in process. It should be. I mean, that's where we're figuring it out. And it's actually stunning to look at something that's not 4 years old, but it almost is. But how much we've actually learned as a group and as a region. Like, some of this isn't just, what does thrive really mean? I mean, we get a chance to redo this, to say, no, in light of what's happened over the past few years, let's be specific, because we really know it's critical. So.
Charlie, does the legislature get a copy of the big plan once it's all rolled together? I mean, not that everybody's gonna read it, but I think even if we can, you know, we've got all of our plans, there's so many plans and links, but I mean, this is what we're really trying to work on in the next 4 months, and I think beyond the one Minnesota plan, it's just nice that our partners or legislators or whoever know what we're all about.
Well, I mean, we have branches of government, but there is this thing they call the trifecta that means something, right? They should be aligned over certain values, and frankly, setting some of those budgetary goals at least 6 weeks before it normally is done is kind of a sign that there is some congruence. But yeah, it should be public, and you know, stay tuned for the governor's State of the State speech, which is coming up in a few weeks. I think we'll hear some of these themes, and know that we, you know, that we have a role in that.
Terry, before you shoot at me if I'm really getting goofy here, but, or goofier, but.
Don't shoot.
To the extent that it would be possible at some point to find an interested journalist to do a story about what we've just done for the last 2 years, or 2 hours.
Yeah.
And we'll be continuing to do it. I think it would be beneficial, because, you know, if the story's only told based on some of the headlines they've been seeing recently, the world doesn't have any idea what the Met Council is doing, why it's doing it, how it's doing it, and what our goals are. So I think it would, I don't know how you market.
And I think Terry's got, we'll save it, but we have some branding ideas. Branding, like, you know, it sounds so corporate, but we need to get our image and what we are out for, because it isn't always fair. And I always tell the story of being in the hospital, and people say, what do you do? And I say, like, have you ever heard of the Met Council? And they say, no. And I'm like, okay, well, I kind of work in government, but I can't go. So yeah, it's like, we need to get it out.
When are we presenting that, Terry? Do we, you know?
Whenever, we're still in the design phase,
Okay.
you know, of the creative.
Okay.
But I think we can certainly talk about, we're taking the consumer insights that we presented to you, and we worked on messaging, and we're in the process of developing an internal campaign. If we think the public doesn't know who we are, try talking to a lot of our employees.
Right.
We have to start with our own ambassadors. We need to get 5,000 people all marching in the same way. So that's our first priority, but we will, when we're ready, we'll get on the agenda. We would love to share.
And it is, you know, it's colorful, it's exciting, it's engaging our own staff members, it's uplifting us as an organization, which obviously, you know, we've gotten beat up in the last couple of weeks, but it's okay, we do lift each other up. And that's the goal of this campaign, which is forthcoming.
Yeah, you know, I had something that, maybe we're already gonna get this, but, you know, whenever I do something, I always like to do it from a historical perspective. And I know bits and pieces about the history of Met Council, but it'd be great to get a history of the Met Council, and you can go decade by decade. that way, when we're going forward, even going out to meet with the various mayors and city councils, then we can bring that forward too.
Sure.
And say, this is where we were, this is why we came into existence, and this is what we've done. And they can see the avalanche of good work, and then that's gonna help us push a lot of our things forward. But first, we need to be immersed in that. So, you know, I'm asking you guys at some point to give us a history of the Met Council, bring us up to date, and then that'll allow us to work from the informed posture.
Such an important point, because we're the ambassadors, we're the storytellers for our community.
And if I could just add, in all of our work, we talked about this at our table, that again, we want to make sure that we have our internal house in order. We need to make sure that we're aligned and we're syncing up and adjusting wherever we need to, because if we aren't performing at a high capacity and at a high level, this is really ambitious work, right? So, you know, I think the new concept of cross-section work, that might feel uncomfortable maybe for some at council, I don't know, because there's these divisions and there's history, but I think when we look at what we're trying to do here, some of that was just like making sure that we support organizational change that can get us to the next step and achieving our goals.
Chai, you have.
Yeah, I wanted to highlight a funny story to Terry's point. So in 2019, when I was first seated with the old council, I went to visit one of my friends at the legislature, Jay John, and I parked in the parking lot across Rice Street across from the Senate office building, and there was a transit supervisor in a car there, and I went up to her and I introduced myself as a council member and I thanked her for her service, and I said I'm one of the new council members, and she says, "So which department do you oversee?" And I said, "Well, all and none of them at once." but to Terry's point, I think we could do a better job of orientating all of our own employees to get on the same message. I appreciate what George has been trying to do so far with raising the esprit de corps with simple things like these little buttons, you know. It gives us an identity and more spirit, and I think that's a good start.
Yeah. So,
I was at a recent meeting in Landfall, a tiny manufactured housing community tucked in between Oakwood, Woodbury, and Maplewood. And the county commissioner, Stan Karwowski from Washington County, was there that same night and had a PowerPoint presentation that appeared to me to be a PowerPoint presentation that a number of Washington County commissioners are using as they go around to their cities. That kind of a thing with the history and what we're working on, what our values are, that would be great if we all had the same thing. We didn't have to prepare it ourselves. We were giving a unified, consistent message.
We have something like that.
I think, and then maybe we could each have a slide of our own community or district.
Right.
And I just have to, when are again, communications doing a great work. But we used to do emails to our districts, and we haven't done those for a while. And so just making sure too that if there are communications with some nuances for our districts, but some of that, I know Charlie, you do a great job putting communications out to the cities and the partners, but I don't know what the plan is to help council members communicate to their districts.
we need to be talking about more robust support for when you're going to your district. Yeah, absolutely.
So I feel like I'm really ahead of the game because I'm a newbie here. And I have heard from our communications team information about the kind of things we're asking for right now. And so I'm encouraged. Also, with the planning that is going on and the cross-cutting areas and work that I see happening with departments coming together, you know, this is all very encouraging, and I think we are on the cusp of something very good as it continues in the strategic planning process. So thank you to all of you for your questions about this. I'm excited about what is to come, and hopefully very shortly. Thank you.
All right, final words. I will go remiss if I don't thank the staff that's around. Quite frankly, the staff that's not in the room, that really do a lot of the hard work that makes all of us look great. I personally, I can't thank the leaders that you see around the room enough for being open to having those cross-channel conversations and really across the divisions to bring us all together under one umbrella. It's going to be a critical piece of what I've heard from many of you over the last few weeks. Thank you for your continued feedback. I can't say enough. I'm super excited. More to come. A lot of the stuff that you've mentioned, it's already in process and in progress. More to come. The summer is going to be great, and this year is going to be amazing for all of us as a one council. And thank you, Chair, for this, and thank you all very much.
We're a few minutes early. It's good when you're on a bus. It's on time. Sounds good. Enjoy your evening. Take some more.
Don't forget to please leave me all your documents.
All right.